right. Hey, everybody. My name is Nathan Smith, and I'm the Digital Programming Coordinator here at the Central Arkansas Library System. Thank you so much for joining me today for Video for the Web. Um, in this class, I'm going to show you how to some of the basics of making great, compelling videos that you can put online, hopefully without too much expense or hassle. And I hope that you get a lot out of the class. Before we dive in and get things rolling, first of all, just want to encourage you. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, plenty of great virtual events happening at CALS here in the next few months. So take a look at the website. It's cals.org. You move your mouse over events, click on find an event online, and you'll see the whole list of stuff we've got coming up. Lots of good stuff. Definitely encourage you to check that out. And I've got a lot of good technology classes coming up as well, library resources for the job hunt, and a whole host of other things. So definitely take a look at the technology classes page as well. If you go up there to events, move your mouse to and move your mouse over that. You can click on technology classes and see that page as well. So make sure to check that out. We'll be happy to have you for all sorts of things. And so yeah, the next thing that I want to tackle is I want to make sure at the beginning of every class that I always encourage you to ask questions. If you have questions, speak up and let me know. You don't have to wait for a particular question and answer time. Depending on how fast we go, there may or may not be time for a particular question and answer time. So when you have a question, that's the time to get it out there. Don't worry about whether it's kind of a silly question or, it seems too basic or something. I'm not going to, the point of a technology class is not for me to see how much you already know about technology. The point of a technology class is to learn useful stuff about technology. So if you need clarification on something that I've said, if there's something that you're curious about that's related to the topic of the class, in any of those situations, I definitely want you to ask those questions right away so we can make sure they get taken care of and you walk away with a lot of good information. Because that, more than covering every point on my outline, makes a successful technology class. So ask those questions whenever you have them. How would I do that, you say? Well, if you're joining me here on Zoom, pretty easy. Take your mouse, move it down to the bottom of the Zoom window, and you should find a little button down near the bottom that says chat. Click on that little speech bubble and type your question in and press enter, and you're good to go. If you don't happen to have, or if you are joining me in Zoom on a mobile device, to get to the chat, you'll probably need to tap in the middle of the screen and look for a button probably in the corner of your screen that says more. Tap on that button, and then you should see chat in the menu that pops up. When you hit that, you should be able to type it in, and you should be all set from there. Just type it in and press the little send button or whatever you have. If you are watching on one of the streaming platforms like Facebook or YouTube, then I would encourage you to go ahead and just type your questions into the Facebook comments or the chat over on the right-hand side of your YouTube page there. That should still get the question in front of me. I'm going to have the chat open there so you can get the questions in that way too, and I will be happy to tackle them. So let's go ahead and dive in. So the first little bit, we're just going to talk about some of the basics. I'm basically going to walk you through some some little tips and tricks for each part of the production process. So in film and video, when we talk about how to make a project, we talk about it in terms of three kind of overarching sections of what you're doing. And sometimes they get mixed all together and they don't necessarily go in strict order. And some tasks may fall in one area for one project, but another area in another project. All of that stuff is fine. But in general, what we talk about is pre-production. So that's going to be things like essentially planning your project. So if you're doing something that's scripted, writing the script. If you're doing something, if you are going to be shooting in a particular location or multiple locations, finding those locations and lining them up so that you can actually use them when you need. Hiring people if you need to, or getting props or equipment together, those kinds of things. All of that stuff is considered to be pre-production. Before the cameras start rolling, you want to have done most of that stuff. Then there's what we call just production. Production is once the cameras start rolling and you're actually shooting footage. And then post-production is what happens after you're done shooting footage. So that's going to be, so we're going to spend the majority of the class time on that, particularly the editing portion of it. And then here in this class, I'm also going to show you how to upload a video to the web. We're going to use YouTube as an example, but it's essentially the same process for almost any sort of video service where you would upload things. Now, live streaming is a little bit different. I do have a class on that that's coming up as well. But if we're talking about pre-recorded material, this is the process that I'm about to walk you through is generally what you're going to do. So so let's talk about pre-production, the things that we're going to do before we really get started shooting the video. So one of the key things, of course, is having some equipment. So you can use a variety of different types of equipment, cheap to expensive, but in the majority of cases, a lot of folks, particularly when they're starting out, are probably just going to use a smartphone. Smartphones actually have really good cameras, particularly for their size. I would say for their price, but to be honest, a smartphone is more expensive than a middle-of-the-road camera, or at least some middle-of-the-road cameras. So it's not really a deal, other than that you probably have a smartphone anyway or need one, and so you're gonna have to pay for a device anyway. If it's a smartphone, then you only have to pay for one device rather than getting your phone and then also getting a camera. But if you're interested in getting a camera, you can look into cameras that are, just depending on what you want to do. There are cameras that are designed for shooting sort of online video content. If you look for cameras that say that are geared towards, as they say, vlogging, VLOGGING, that's like blogging, but video. If you look for cameras that are geared towards that, you'll probably find pretty good ones, particularly for videos like this, where there's sort of the talking head aspect of it is sort of a primary component. So you can, if you want to, you can look for cameras. You might also invest, even if you're just using your phone, you might also invest in an external microphone. The microphone on your phone, not to put too fine a point on it, is really bad. It's made for it. The thing that that microphone is designed for is allowing you to make and receive calls where you can hear people and people can hear you. That's really all the mic on your phone is designed for. So most of the time when you capture sound through the mic on your phone, it's not going to sound good. So you probably want something a little bit nicer if you're going to be doing a lot of online video. Now, for the first little while, it's not too bad to use the onboard mic for your, on your phone, and I'll talk about some ways that you can kind of offset those problems. But you probably will, ultimately want some sort of microphone. I purchased for the library once that a kit that you can actually, a microphone kit that you can actually get that it's kind of a directional, or as they say sometimes, shotgun mic that you can put on top of your phone relatively easily. And it just plugs right in. You might need a little adapter to kind of mount it on there, but it's no big deal. And then you might also try, if it's just mostly going to be you talking, you might also try getting either sort of a stationary, larger microphone, or we call a lavalier, a clip-on mic. So for a lavalier, one of the nice things about it is, depending on how you set up your clothes, depending on how you arrange your clothes, you can sort of, you can potentially hide the mic altogether so that you're not, so that you don't, so that folks don't see it as obviously on screen. And that's nice. Although potentially, you want to be kind of careful how you set it up, because sometimes your clothes can sort of rub against it and make noise and that sort of thing. And it's usually not pointed directly towards your mouth. I don't know about you, but my mouth is not lined up with my chest. And so, so you probably won't, so the mic probably won't be pointing towards your mouth, and you might get worse sound that way than you would with a more conventional microphone. If you're doing videos that are more sort of talking head style like this, the good news is you don't really have to hide your mic. I've got mine right here. Hello, hello. And I have, I'm hoping before too long to actually get a little boom stand for this mic, so that it can, so that I can have it in front of my face rather than down here on the desk, which keeps it further away from my mouth. The closer to your mouth the microphone is, the better sound you're going to get, unless you're like yelling into the microphone, in which case you probably want to back off a little bit. Generally speaking, though, just don't yell into microphones. But that is, so having a mic and some sort of camera, obviously, super duper important to, even if it's your phone, super duper important to video content, because without that, you either won't have sound or you won't have picture, or both. And that's usually kind of a deal breaker. So, so you want to do that. Other pieces of equipment that I might recommend, one is a tripod. Tripods, the ones that I typically use are, I think, between 15 and 20 bucks on Amazon. And even if you're using your phone, generally speaking, unless your video is going to be sort of handheld, where you're moving around and stuff while you're shooting, generally speaking, you'll want to have your phone on something that will hold it still and that'll allow you to adjust it and place it where you need it to be. A tripod is that. If you're using a tripod with a phone, you can get a little adapter. It's that's, I mean, you probably would spend around $10 or so, but it's a little mic, or it's a little phone clip. You put your phone inside of it like so, and then it holds your phone still, and it has little mounting holes that you can where you can attach the tripod plate to the to your phone, so it'll hold your phone still and in the right at the right angle, basically. So a tripod, when you're first starting out, if there's no other equipment that you decide to spring for right then, a tripod is worth it. If you don't have a tripod and you don't have access to one, and you're like, I can spend $0 on this, understandable, totally fine. Find some way else to prop your phone up in the right position. Stack it on top of stuff, put it on a bookshelf, tape it to things securely, of course. Any kind of thing. Generally speaking, though, unless there's a reason where you want the camera to be moving around for some sort of artistic effect or for some logistical reason, typically you want to hold your camera still if at all possible. That just, it's less distracting. You get a better picture that way. And so that's typically how you want to approach that. And finally, you want to think about lighting a little bit. And this kind of gets into the production area of it too, or sort of figuring out locations. So lighting obviously is very important in video. The reason that lighting is important is that without light, video equipment does not work. Even fancy night vision goggles need infrared light in order to be able to see anything. So you using a normal civilian camera that is not designed to mount on someone's face when they take on a top secret mission, you will need light. So ways that you can do that, there are a bunch of different ways to approach that. One that I have used many times, and in fact I'm using a little bit right now, is to just, one is to use exterior, like outdoor lighting, like the sun. If you are, if you shoot your videos outdoors, or if you shoot your videos in a room with big old windows or something, that can be really good. Now, if you're shooting in a room with big windows, one thing you want to do, which is what I'm doing right now, there's a window right there in front of me, is you want to place the camera between you and the window, generally speaking, particularly if it's bright outside. If it's a little darker outside, it won't be as big of a problem. But if it's pretty bright outside, then your camera is going to have a hard time deciding, or you are going to have a hard time setting your camera so that you can both see the details of you or whoever the subject of the video is, and the details of what's in the background out the window. You're either gonna bring your, what we call exposure, so the amount of light that is coming into the camera. You're either going to bring your exposure way down so that you don't see, so that you sort of, so that you can get the, basically, you're either going to make your image too dark for to see you, so it's kind of geared towards what's in the, you can see everything that's happening outside the window, but you look like a dark shadow, basically. Or you can set it so that you look right, but everything behind you is just white light, essentially, because cameras can only, they can't see, unless it's a very fancy, expensive camera, it can't see the details in both bright areas of an image and shadowy areas of the image at the same time. So you kind of have to choose. But if you put the camera between you and the sun, then the sun becomes your friend because it's shining light on you, and your background behind you, if you're indoors, or if you're outdoors. So that can really help. Another way that you can go is to just to use lamps and other kinds of household lighting. So I'm doing some of that as well. I've got another light that I'll talk about in a moment right here. But next to me, right here, just out of frame, and over here in the corner, I have lamps, and they are they're adding some light on essentially on the sides of me so that I don't look flat when because all the rest of the light is coming from behind the camera. And so if that's the only light that I've got, then it's gonna look I'm gonna kind of blend in with this white wall a little bit. Um, so you can use lamps. Before I got my ring light up here that I'm going to talk about in a minute, I took a lamp that had 2 bulbs and I literally just put it behind my desk on top of a box so that it was high enough that the light came from the lamp and shined on my face. And that's totally fine. You can do stuff like that. You can use lamps. One thing to mention is if you are using like you want to look at how bright the bulbs are and what color the bulbs are. So bulbs come in like 3 different colors, 2 that are common and 1 that's kind of less common. So the 2 common ones are what are called soft white. So they're pretty orangey light, or what we say is they have a warm color temperature. So soft white is pretty orangey light. It's closer to something like candlelight, as they would use back in the day. And so those are kind of the typical bulbs that you find around the house more often than not. But then there are bulbs that are labeled as daylight bulbs. Excuse me. The daylight bulbs are going to be ones that have a little more bluish light. If you put a soft white bulb and a daylight bulb right next to each other, then you're going to say you would say the daylight one was blue and the soft white one was orange. And that corresponds to the way we talk about what we call color temperature in film and video and photography. So generally speaking, the daylight ones, the more bluish ones, are going to look a little better. Now, you don't want to go too far. You don't want to go just full on blue, because if you do, it'll look, I mean, you might, but it's going to look kind of a little weird or sterile or spooky, maybe, depending on how blue it is. And so you just want to be in control of what your lighting looks like. So you'll want to, at first you'll want to record some test footage and kind of see like, okay, does that look right? Or does it look like, I'm kind of in a dark room or at a romantic candlelight dinner? Or, does it look like I'm in some sort of warehouse when I'm sitting in my living room? Or, does it look about right? And then you can adjust accordingly by either swapping out bulbs or moving lights further away from you or towards you, or, using a dimmer if the light has one, or whatever. So that's something to bear in mind. Err on the side of more blue, but at the end of the day, you don't want to look all blue. You don't want lights that are like maximum blue, because that could look a little weird as well. And there are, if you decide you want to spend a little bit more money, or if this just sounds interesting to you, there are light bulbs that are color changing bulbs. So you can, so you would be able to adjust those settings depending on what works for you if you use one of those types of bulbs. So we've talked about that. Let's also talk about how to place lights. And this is kind of assuming that you're shooting indoors. If you're outdoors, like, things are a little bit different. It's a little bit harder to get the lighting exactly the way you want it, because I mean, you don't control the sun, and neither do I. So, so it's a little trickier. But indoors, you know, you want to set your lights up so that you certainly want some amount of light coming towards, you know, if you're the subject or whoever is the subject of the video, you want a certain amount of light coming towards you, toward, you know, shining onto your face, essentially. What I have for this particular setup that I'm using right now is a ring light up here just behind my camera. The ring light allows me to, well, the ring light is powered by USB and it's plugged into my computer. So I just press a button on there's a little wired remote that goes with it. I press the button and it turns on. This particular ring light, I can adjust the color temperature and I can also adjust the brightness of it. And one of the nice things about ring lights is that they give you a nice, what we call eye light. So if you look at my eyes right here, you'll see there's like a little reflection right there. If you get that little reflection in your eyes or in the eyes of the subject of your video, then that person looks a lot more alive. Whereas if I turn it off, you'll notice I look, well, for one thing, it's not focused on me, but for another, I look a little less, I look a little like duller, basically. So that eye light is sort of, that's kind of key to like making people look like, look the way you want them to look like, you know, more like a human being that you would meet in the world that you can make eye contact with. So the ring light that I have here, that was about $20 on Amazon. And it works pretty well for me. I now have several of them for various purposes. So you want light in front of you. You want light to shine on your face. So that's one of the nice things about the ring light as well, is it gives you a nice even light since it's round, it's like almost the shape of your face, gives you a nice even light that's going in all directions. So it makes the lighting of your face look smooth. And so people can see the different parts of your face. You also will certainly want some light behind you to some degree or another. I do have a light up here above me that's, it's pretty small, but there's a little light up there. And what that does, having light behind you, what we call backlighting, basically allows the camera and also your viewers to visually separate you from your background. If there's not as much light coming from behind you, then what happens is you get that flatter look because all the light is coming from in front of you. And unless that's genuine, like that's what you're going for as an artistic effect, you usually don't want that. You usually want people to focus on you, and then if they look at the background, then great. But the background is not the primary thing you want them to focus on in your shot. And therefore you want your subject, whoever's in your shot, to stand out from the background behind them. And then finally, you can put lighting on the side, and that helps even things out. Like I said, I've got a lamp over here and a lamp over here. And that helps kind of, that again also helps with sort of making sure I don't look flat on camera, because even if you have the backlight and light in the front, then you end up getting, then you basically get, well, not anything that's not directly in line with one of those lights is going to be in shadow. And so you'll look a little weird. One way, kind of the classic way that in film and video that we get a good lighting setup, kind of the go-to default lighting setup for film and video, is what we call 3-point lighting. To be honest with you, I almost never use this technique directly as is. If I try it, I usually have to sort of fiddle with it a little bit until I get it right. But, until I get something that looks good for the actual environment I'm in. But in general, we 3-point lighting is a good way to go, or at least a good starting place. So 3-point lighting, you can, the way it works is you have 3 lights, as you might imagine, that form sort of a triangle. The 2 of the lights are in front of you. So the first light, the main light that's kind of out in front is called the key light. The key light is essentially where the light seems to be coming from primarily to your viewer. So if in this shot I were supposed to be standing right in front of a window, then essentially you would place the key light where the window is, at the same angle as the window is supposed to be relative to me. So that way it looks like the lighting, it looks like all the lighting in the shot is coming from that key light. So that's going to be the main light that where people could, if they, if you paused it and said, so where's the light in this, in this image, they could probably say, oh, it's over here behind them to the left or to the right. I mean, behind the camera to the left or to the right. On the other side, so the other point of the triangle in front of me is we call the fill light. And the fill light basically makes sure that my, that I don't get sort of a two-face kind of effect where it's bright light from the key light on one side and then it's complete shadow over here. So you can see this side of my face and you can't see the other side of my face. That usually doesn't look great, although sometimes it can be used for dramatic effect, like in film noir, for example. But that's obviously done intentionally. And at the time it was revolutionary. It was sort of breaking the rules on purpose in a really interesting, provocative kind of way. But I don't recommend you start out trying to break the rules because it's harder to get it right and make it something that's still pleasing. So the way that the fill light works is it's on the other side. So if there's if one point of the triangle, or if 2 points of the triangle are in front of me, the key light's here, the fill light is here. The fill light is a little bit dimmer than the key light. So I don't get quite as bright of a light from over here as I do from over here, but that's okay. Because it makes my face look like it has a little more depth and dimension by having a different amount of light coming from each of those 2 lights. And then, as I mentioned, the backlight goes behind the subject and it helps you visually tell the difference between the background and the foreground or the subject of the shot. With more noticeable backlight, you can actually kind of see a little like halo effect almost around the subject that makes them very clearly delineated from the background. So that's 3-point lighting, backlight behind, key light kind of at an angle out in front, and the fill light at another angle out in front to make sure you're lit relatively evenly and the audience can tell the subject from the background. Okay, so we talked about that. I spent a lot of time on lighting, I know, but lighting is super duper important. And to be honest with you, it's something that can be kind of difficult. So I want to make sure that that y'all have some pointers so you can sort of so that you don't have to spend time sort of stumbling around trying to get it right. Okay, so one other thing that has to do with location and also has to do with sound. One other kind of set of things, I guess. I will say, if you have to choose, having really good sound is more important than having a super duper high resolution picture. This was actually the thing that, the sort of underappreciated thing that sort of made YouTube so popular is one of the things about us as humans is if we're watching something on even on a very small screen or even something that's very low quality, but the sound is really good, then that impresses us more. And we're like, we will more easily will, you know, if we if the sound is good, then we consider it more professional and typically like it a little bit better. Now, of course, if you have a great picture, that's a wonderful bonus. But if you have to choose between getting the picture just right and getting the sound just right, choose the sound. Um, oh, the thing about YouTube, YouTube supported really good sound, uh, and at the expense of the picture. So, you know, if it had to show you fewer images or it had to show you a lower resolution in order to get full quality sound to you, then it would. And that was one of the things that made YouTube more popular, because it felt like, okay, I'm seeing something really cool here that's well made, even if you can't see it really well. In order to make your sound good, here are a few things. So obviously use a mic if you can, like I mentioned before. Get the mic close to your subject. That's pretty important. That's why I want that boom arm for my microphone, so that I can get the mic closer to my mouth, more like this. The closer the mic is to where the sound is coming from, the better the sound is going to sound. And then the last tip, whether you're using a mic, you know, an external mic or just the one built into your phone or whatever, is make it quiet. You don't want to shoot video in an area where there's a lot of loud noise or there's a lot of music going on in the background, things like that. All of that kind of stuff. If you get it, or, you know, if you're shooting somewhere like that, it's gonna have a negative effect on the quality of your sound, generally speaking. And so usually you want to shoot somewhere that's quiet. That's another reason why shooting outdoors is, excuse me, not always great, because shooting outdoors means you're going to have car noises and animal noises and the wind and stuff like that. And you have to fight with all that stuff in order to get decent sound. So, so those are some tips for how to make, you know, how to get the best sound that you can. Sound is more important than picture if you have to choose. Use a mic if you can. Whatever mic you're using, whether it's built into your camera or phone, or if it's external, get it as close as you can to the subject, so that way you get better sound, and make sure your environment is quiet. You know, in places like a lot of times in places like film sets and stuff like that, they'll turn off the air conditioning and so on and so forth, so that they make sure there's no there are no extra little sounds interfering with their audio. Okay, so let's talk about one more visual thing, and then we will dive into editing. So one more visual thing is to talk about what we call composition. We could do a bunch of different things with, you know, with getting a better picture, but a few little tips are probably the best way to go. First of all, if you're shooting with your phone, I regret to inform you, unless you're shooting video for TikTok, no one likes portrait video. So if you're shooting with your phone and it's not for TikTok, do not hold it like this. Hold it like this all the time. That's a lot nicer on YouTube. That's a lot nicer on people's TV screens. That's a lot nicer on every screen except for a phone. So shoot them in landscape mode, not portrait mode. Because if you're shooting in portrait mode and you're watching it on any screen other than another phone screen, you get huge black bars on the side, and it doesn't look great. Don't shoot in portrait mode if you can avoid it. and if you're not shooting for TikTok. One thing that you can do is to make sure that you are, one sort of easy thing to think of in terms of positioning your camera is, generally speaking, if you're doing something where, if you have a person on screen, generally speaking, you want to place your camera just a little bit above eye level, something like this. And what that's going to do is it's a more flattering angle for your face, and it just looks right most of the time. So, again, for artistic effect or for logistical reasons, you could shoot in a number of different positions, but generally speaking, just above eye level is a really good way to place your camera, because it looks nice. One other thing that you want to avoid also is completely centering your subject most of the time. So you'll notice here in my frame, I am about 2/3 of the way over on camera. So I've got about 1/3 of my image over here is like, is empty. And then the other 2/3 are on the other side of me. And I'm right here. Excuse me. We use this sort of rule of thumb in photography and video called the rule of thirds. So if you divide your frame into thirds vertically, and then you divide your frame into thirds horizontally, then you get 9 segments, and you want your essentially you want the subject of your videos to fall on those lines dividing the segments from each other. So in this case, I'm on this line right here. There's another line over here, and then so that looks a little bit nicer. Now, there are always exceptions to the rule. If you watch a Wes Anderson movie, he always places everything in the center of the frame and makes it very symmetrical, and that's a style, but it's not the normal style, and it's harder to make that look good. So just know that. Okay, so let's talk about editing. So we're going to switch over. I'm going to start up my screen share. We're going to be working in a program today called Shotcut. Shotcut is a video editing program that is free and open source. And what I mean by that is, free and open source programs mean that there's usually a community of volunteers that contribute to making the software better. And there's also the free part is just, it's free to use the software. So you don't have to pay anything to get this software. It runs on Windows PCs, Apple Mac computers, and even computers running the Linux operating system. So pretty much any type of traditional computer. And you can get it for free. I want to say it's at shotcut.org. So it's spelled like shortcut, but without the R. There are some example files that you can use to follow along with me. I had the address up on the screen before class, but that's, I'll put that in the chat right now. Depending on how fast your internet connection you might not have time to download it and be able to follow along. But if so, that's okay. You can rewatch this. It is going to be on the CALS YouTube channel and the CALS Facebook page. So you can circle back and watch it later if you want to. If you did download it, you'll want to extract it and put it somewhere, unzip the zip file with the footage. And there's also a song there that that is free, royalty free, that you can download and use in your project. So let me go ahead and get screen share Shotcut with you. Come on, where? Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so the Shotcut window is open, and we've got our and I'm pretty much ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to show you a little example project that'll give you an idea of some of the basics of editing video. If you're going to be using different software from this, that's totally fine. There's, if you have a Mac, then you have access to iMovie. If you're on a Windows computer, there's actually a built-in Windows video editing program. I haven't really tried it, but I might end up using it in future versions of this class, just depending on what it is, or depending on how it is. And then there are a lot of other, and there are a lot of good video editors out there. If you want something a little more fancy, there's a program called DaVinci Resolve, where the free version is pretty full featured, and if you want if you want to get extra fancy, there's a paid version that you can use. But for now, this is what we're going to use, Shotcut. So let's go ahead and get some video footage into this into the video editor here. So what I'm going to do is head down to the bottom underneath this playlist area. So over on the left-hand side, you'll see, hopefully you'll see the playlist. If not, you might see some tabs down here, and there should be a playlist tab among them. You can click that to get there. If you don't see that either, you can click playlist up at the top here in the toolbar, and that should make it appear. So I'm going to click plus underneath the playlist. Okay, apparently it's not going to do it. All right, well, that's good. Let's go ahead and actually, I'll come up here and click on open file. Okay, so I've got it open, and it remembered where I put my video footage here. I've got these six little video clips, all that I'm using in the example. Now, with these 6 video clips, they're all from one particular scene. It's scene 1 at the website that I linked you to, and so I'm gonna just grab these. So one of the easiest ways to do it: hold down my mouse and drag a box around the all of the files so that I can grab them all at once. Another option would be to click one, hold shift, and click one on the other end, so that gets all of them. But either way, I just want to select all 6 of those. Oh, and it starts playing as soon as I load it up, which is not really what I wanted, but it's fine. Okay, so we have all our 6 clips in the playlist over here. One of the key things to remember about this, so the playlist, anytime you're using modern video editing software, it's going to do what's called non-destructive, non-linear editing. So non-destructive just means if you trim out a portion of a video clip, that video clip is not, or, that part of the video clip is not destroyed. So if I have a 10-minute clip and I only use 1 minute of it in my final project, the other 9 minutes are still, the other 9 minutes are still there. They're just not in the finished product. If I go back to wherever I stored that video clip on my computer, then I can watch the full 10 minutes of raw footage. So so that's the way that, you know, one of the metaphors that I like to use sometimes when I'm explaining this is like a stage director for a play. So the stage director for a play is backstage, and you know, in case the actors aren't paying as close attention or whatever, is there to say like, okay, you're on, to the, you know, to the next person, to give them their cue. So your video editing program is kind of like that. You know, you're taking 5 seconds from this clip over here and 2 minutes from this clip over here, and you're taking 30 seconds from this clip over here. And what your video editing program does is allow you to line all those up in a row, and then it'll just give those clips cues and say, okay, it's your time, you know, clip number 7, you know, you're up, and so on and so forth, so that it all plays as one piece. And then at the end, you can export the finished file so that you've got, you can export the finished file so that you've got the end of, you know, so that you can, give someone the complete version of it without them having, you know, one, without them having to have the same video editing software as you, and two, without them having to have all of the original raw footage. They can just have the finished product. So, so that's what our, that's the non-destructive part. The non-linear part just basically means you can do your video editing in any order. And if you've got something pretty much the way you want it, but you need to trim a little bit out of the middle, or you want to add something in the middle later on, no big deal. You can totally do that. So you can do things in any order you want and kind of just follow where your process takes you, which is useful. Okay, so we've got these clips. In this scene, we're not going to watch through the whole thing because we don't have time for that. In this scene that we're going to be working on today, basically, a student comes into the advisor's office, but he is late for advising. He hasn't, you know, the appointments or last week or whatever. He's trying to figure out, you know, they're trying to figure out what classes he should take, but he doesn't really have any idea. And at the end, the advisor tells him, look, like, you're not doing well at school here. Like, you might flunk out. And so, so that's what the scene is. So we've got 6 different clips from that scene that we want to assemble together. Some of them are multiple takes of the same, you know, of the same shot. So we want to, the first thing that we want to do whenever we're working on something like this is we want to sort of just look through our footage, watch all of our footage and see what we ended up with, basically. Make sure there are no major, like, if, you know, anytime you're shooting something in video, generally speaking, you want to shoot it more than once. So that way you have, you know, if something went wrong technically with the first take, then you have a second take as a backup, or if, you know, or you might get a better performance or better sound in another take, things like that. So, so usually you'll need to kind of watch through and see like where the good stuff is, basically. And depending on how you're shooting things, you might also shoot things from more than one angle, or, you know, have shots that are on, you know, person X and then another shot that's on person Y or whatever. So you want to watch your footage. When you load something up in the playlist here in Shotcut, then it's in your project. In other video editing software, we would say that this footage has been imported into our editor. So I'm going to hit play here down at the bottom of the little video player. We'll see what this first clip is. So the advisor comes in, basically ignores our student character for a moment or two, fiddles around on her laptop, and keeps fiddling on her laptop. And
we can do a cut there.
There we go. Awkward silence all the way through. And we do have the director at the end there saying, and we're going to cut there. So we would definitely want to clip that out if we end up using this particular take in the footage. In fact, let's go ahead and do that while I'm thinking about it. So down here at the bottom of the video player, I've got this little line with the arrow at the top. I can use that. That's called the playhead. I can move that around wherever I need it to be by dragging it with the mouse, or I can move back and forth inside of my, inside of the player. So if I want to go back one frame, so as you all know, video is a series of still images flashed on a screen fast enough that it gives your eye the illusion of motion. So if you are if you're in basically, well, there's this thing called frame rate. The frame rate for this particular footage is 24 frames per second. So as this video is playing, 24 still, if it's playing full speed, 24 still images are being flashed on the screen over the course of a second. So every second there's 24 still images. That's the standard for film, like for movies that you might see in a movie theater someday once you've got a vaccine. So you can, 24 frames per second, that's normal for film. For TV, at least here in the United States, the standard frame rate is 30 frames per second. That's why you can tell the difference at a glance between what's a movie and what's a TV show when you're watching it on, on your TV. Because if it's because your eye can tell the differences between the types of movement that you're seeing, and so you have a gut instinct like this is a movie or this is a TV show. That's actually why most of the time. That's another, that's frame rate. Video games, the standard frame rate is 60 frames per second rather than 24 or 30. That way you can see the, smoother motion and you can track moving objects in the game more easily. So if I want to move backwards or forwards one frame in my video, all I need to do is use the left and right arrow keys on my keyboard. Left arrow key goes back one frame. So you can see she's slowly sort of putting her hand up there, kind of playing with her earring or scratching her neck or something. Or to go forward, I can hit the right arrow. And then to play and pause, I can hit spacebar. Okay, I hear the director taking a breath there. Okay, so like there-ish is when that starts. So we want to cut all that off. What I'm going to do to cut it off so that I just don't even so that I don't even accidentally get that down in my timeline when I'm editing, is I'm going to set an out point for this clip. To do that, I'm just going to press the O key on my keyboard, like so. Or I can take this red kind of border here, or this white arrow, and I can drag that inward. In fact, I might do that here because we don't really need any of the footage before we see her start walking in. Cool. So now I've set an in point and an out point for my footage. So what I'm telling my video editor is, for right now at least, I don't want to use these end portions of the clip. I just want to use the parts in the middle, which makes sense because usually you have your camera rolling before the action that you want to capture starts. And so there's bits on either side that you don't really want. So I've set those ins and out points. And now when I add this clip into my timeline, if I end up doing that, then I can, then I know those parts are already gone. Let's watch another couple of clips here.
Awesome.
Okay, so this one, we've got the director
Pfizer scene. One, take two.
And we can sort of, oh, okay.
And action.
So we can't use any of that stuff beforehand. Okay, so I can drag this and kind of scroll through quickly. Okay, this clip is a minute long.
Skating on thin ice. You see where this is going? You simply can't afford to fail another course. You barely have enough credits to stick around as it is. So let's finish off this semester strong, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So this is her. So it's basically the same as the first shot, but this is actually her side of the dialogue in the scene, the whole scene. So I can take this, I can set this out point here-ish, and cut off bits at the end.
So let's finish off this semester strong, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a good spot. I'll mark that as the out point by hitting O. Okay, cool. So that's kind of, and then if over here, I'll drag that. Okay, we don't need, yeah, that's good. Okay, here we go. There's a little adjustment to the camera. Kind of lurches a little bit. There we go. That's good. Okay, so that's a good in and out point for that. I'm not going to do that on all those shots because that'd be boring.
And action.
This clip, we're looking at the student.
No, not really.
Okay.
And then these two clips here, slightly different angle. Okay, this is just her coming in, not anything else.
And action.
I am going to use this actually. So I need to find where the director stops saying action.
Action.
Okay. Nope. It's good. Okay, that's going to be my end point for this one. This is nice because I get the students in focus.
We can do a cut there.
That's my out. And I can kind of see him. I can sort of see him. We can sort of focus on him the whole time and see like, how is he feeling? Because he's got a more sort of emotional aspect of the scene here. This one here shows him, and
All right. From the looks of it, you'll be able to.
this has his whole dialogue.
And it would probably be scheduled for next semester.
I didn't really make one for.
There we go. Okay, so I want to start with this clip in the editing because this is going to be. See, I'll look for the. They actually have the door closed this time. Nope. Oh, she closed the door. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with this. That's my endpoint, and I'm going to use this as kind of where I'm going to start working from. So I'm going to take this clip and I'm going to hold down with my mouse button and drag it down here. Whoops. And drop it into this timeline area right here. When I do that, then I get a video track here. Now, one thing to bear in mind with these tracks, when you're editing video, the tracks are layers of video. So if I put, so this one, this is the only track right now. If I put in another track, whatever is underneath it is not going to show up at all because this video is blocking 100% of the frame. If I cropped this video somehow, made it into a little like picture in picture or something like those of you watching on the live stream are seeing, then you know, if you think of it that way, essentially like the picture in picture is in the top track, whatever that is, and then the regular picture is below that on the bottom track or the lower track. And so that way you can have multiple layers of things happening at once. And that can be really useful if you're using kind of graphics and things like that. So we've got him sitting awkwardly in the office.
And action.
Oh, still got some stuff there somehow. I'll go ahead and bring this in. Okay, I'm going to cut that out. So I'm going to come to these. I'm going to come up here to, where is it? Ah, there, that's useful. I'm going to use the split at playhead for right now. So I'll click on this, split at playhead, or I could press S on my keyboard. You'll see there's a keyboard shortcut. Click on that. I split the clip up. So now it's 2 clips. If I move the playhead a little bit, you'll notice there's 1 clip here and 1 clip here. And I'm just going to delete this. So I'm going to remove. And in this case, it goes automatically in and fills in the rest. So he's sitting awkwardly. The advisor comes in, walks behind him. And somewhere in there, we would probably cut to the advisor so we can see her. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click somewhere in here where it says track operations. I'm going to click add video track. And now we have a second video track on top here. So now what I want to do is grab the other clip where we have the advisor coming in and the camera follows her. I'm just going to drag this in for the moment. Oh, I remember what I did wrong now with the in and out points. Rather than dragging from the video here, what I should have done is grab this section. Nope, I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe it's just a glitch. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it down into this second track here and drop it. Okay, when I do that, what's going to happen is I now can't see the advisor or the student at all, even though he's there. But I am going to hear his audio track as well, so that's going to get real messy here in a second.
I assume you're here to explore your options for next semester?
Yeah, not so good. So I think that these are two shots from the same take. So I'm gonna actually try and line these up and see if we can't. So what I'm gonna do is, so I'm gonna come up here to this clip and I'm gonna hold down on my mouse button and I'm gonna drag and just kind of at first, just kind of try to eyeball. I need some more space. These little dots right here, if you hold your mouse over it, you can drag up a little bit. So now I get less video up here at the top, but I have more room for my tracks, which is good for me right now. I'm going to drag the playhead here, and I'm just going to try to line it up so that the dialogue is happening at the same time. I might need to zoom in a little bit more just so I can see. So I'll click this little magnifying glass to zoom in further. Oh man, I got it almost right there. So I'm going to drag this back maybe 1 frame, maybe just one little frame. Okay, it's not letting me do it. The reason it's not letting me do it is that this snapping is on. So if I get essentially, if I'm dragging a clip around and I decide to, and I move it close to where it was before, then it's going to try and go exactly where it was before. Or it's going to try to line up with the starts and ends of other clips, with other edit points, as we say. So I'm going to turn the snapping off by clicking the little magnet right here. And now I'm going to try and drag it just 1 frame this way. There we go. That looks pretty right there. So let's listen to it.
I assume you're here to explore your options for next semester?
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay, we got it. So now that we've got those lined up, a real nice thing is we can actually just cut back and forth between these. So I'm going to come over here and try to get our beginning right. So we've got the beginning. He's sitting awkwardly. She comes in. Oops. Okay. We need to wait on this. Okay. So we can kind of, ooh, there's a camera right there in the shot. That's not going to work. So let's keep going. Okay. Now she's over here, out of range. Let's go ahead and do a couple of things here. I'm going to start the shot where she starts to sit down, because we don't need to hear her walk all the way around her desk and all that stuff. And we're about to have another awkward pause here. So we don't really need, once she gets off screen, then I'm just going to cut away right there. So I'm going to take this. So I'm going to take right here on this clip, I'm going to give it a little slice. Again, split at playhead. I'm going to take this part right here. So when I move my mouse over this edit point, if I get on the right side of the edit point, I get green. If I get on the left side, of the edit point, I get red. What's happening here is, and then you'll notice my mouse pointer turns into a double-ended arrow. If I move my mouse, I'm going to move my mouse over the green, hold down with my mouse button, and drag until, oh, I forgot my snapping is off. Hang on. Click that magnet again. Drag until I get it lined up nicely with the clip of the advisor. So they stay in the same time frame with each other. And now I'm going to select both. So I'm going to come down here and click on one, hold down Control on my keyboard, CTRL in the corner, and I'm going to drag both of these so that they go up against the other one. One thing to bear in mind about this is as you're editing in the timeline in whatever video editing software you use, you basically never want to have a gap. If you have a gap between clips in your video, that's just time where where you have a black screen and nothing else. You don't usually want that except for effect, and usually you're going to like fade into it or fade out of it. You're typically not going to have like, you're typically not going to have like you're typically not going to just want random black space in the middle of your image, or I mean of your video. Okay, so one annoying thing here that's happening is that the audio on this clip is sort of noisy. There's like this, you hear that? There's like a hard drive noise or something in the background there. So the audio
I assume you're here to
connected with this clip sound is louder, but the audio connected with this clip, if I just click this little thing to mute it,
explore your options for next semester.
It's quieter, but it doesn't have all that background noise, at least not nearly as much. So, so I'm going to mute the audio for this one, and I'm just going to turn the audio for this one up. So let's go in here, and I'm going to click on filters, the plus sign, and then I'm just going to say gain/volume for now. So what I'm going to do is, so right now it's at 0 here. So I'm going to bring it up. Let's make it, I don't know how low they recorded this. I'll try going up by 16.1 decibels for now and see how that strikes us. Now it basically turns into the same thing.
I assume you're here to explore your options for next semester?
Yeah, I didn't see that.
It's not quite as glaring though. I'm going to keep it the way it is. If I were doing this as a real project, I'd probably add some other audio filters, which there are a bunch of them here, to try and, well, I might try this. There's a noise gate option here. I've literally never used this filter in Shotcut before. Full disclosure, my normal video editor is Adobe Premiere Pro. But I'll go ahead and throw this noise gate on and see what that does.
I assume you're here to explore your options for next semester?
Let's see. Let's bring that down a little.
I assume you're here to explore your options for next semester?
Anyway, that's probably not productive for me to play with that with y'all at the moment. So we'll leave that alone and we'll go with the audio we have for right now.
I assume you're here to explore your options for next semester?
That does seem a little
Yeah,
clear.
I didn't see an advisor sheet outside, so I thought I just.
Cool. So we've got that. Let me so okay, let's see how this edit goes. Comes in. Oh, we probably would want to throw both of those filters on the other clip too, just so that it sounds the same. So I'm going to take these two, copy the filters, click on this clip, paste the filters, and now it sounds a little more uniform. Okay, cool. So I could probably play with that edit, but it's not worth it for us right now. So right here, one thing that we want to do, we want to get across essentially like she's sitting here staring at her computer. He's like, come on, I'm right here. So we want to cut back. I'm going to split at the playhead again. And this time I'm going to do another. When I drag the edge of a clip like this is called a trim edit. So that's either going to essentially cut frames off of a clip or add frames back on that were previously cut off. So either one of those is called a trim edit. It's just a matter of whether you're lengthening the clip that you're seeing or cutting it down.
I assume you're here.
Let's see. I'm probably going to cut away earlier. Not that early. Anyway, you could mess with it. You could even kind of artificially lengthen it by using all of the footage. So even though I've cut away for this portion of it, you could have a cut to the student and you could actually use this footage and then this footage as well. So you can do a lot of creative, interesting things with it. And as you can see, the thing that I wanted to, that I mentioned earlier about the way that the tracks work. So you've got a track, the student, the footage of the student is down here on track 1. Track 2 is above that one. So whenever we have something on track 2, it obscures the video of the student. And so you can use that to kind of cut around, and you can also you can use it. Sometimes you just want to use different tracks for different types of things. So if you're using some graphics or things like that, you might want to place those on a different track. So that way you can get things, you kind of know, okay, this track has graphics, this track has the coverage of this character, this track has the coverage of this character, and you can keep things a little more organized. If I right click down here, I can also add an audio track if I want to, which I'm going to do now. And that audio track, I'm going to I'm actually going to throw some music here toward the end when we're getting like the serious like oh, we need to cut all that off. There we go. When we're getting like the serious discussion of, well, you could get, you could get expelled or whatever it was that she's talking about at the end. So I'm going to come up here and click open file again. And this time I'm going to find the song that is also available at the download link there. It starts playing. So this is kind of like a little ominous, So a little sad. Let's see.
So let's finish off this semester. You simply can't afford to. You see where this is going?
So she
And
says,
your midterm grades have been, you've been skating on thin ice. You see where this is going?
you see where this is going. And then maybe some sad music comes in. So I'm going to click back to my playlist. Okay. Oh, thank goodness it ended up here. Okay, and the source, I'm going to go ahead and drag it into the playlist so that we have it there. There's the song. I'm going to take that and just drop it right in here on that audio track. The audio track, of course, is audio only.
You see where this is going?
It's a little too late. We kind of want it to come in a little earlier, and maybe we want to fade in a little bit. So I'm going to select this. Well, let's see how this does.
You see where this is going?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move it even earlier. We're going to fade in slowly from here. So I've got the track selected. I'm going to go to filters again. Or actually, no, this time I'm going to go down here to keyframes. And wait, nope. Okay, let's do filters first. I'm going to go to fade in audio. There we go. Okay, so now you can see there's a little like it's lit up over here, but there's a little dark kind of triangle here. So that's the music fading in.
You see where this is going?
It's a little too abrupt. So now I should be able to come down here. Yeah, there we go, to keyframes. So keyframes are a thing that's used in a lot of animation and media software. They're basically like keyframes basically are kind of like marks. Again, going back to the analogy of a play, when you use a keyframe to animate or or change something, then you're saying, I want you to be here at this point. So right now what we're doing is we're animating the volume of this. I know that sounds weird, but we're animating the volume of this audio clip. So by this point right here, so this is kind of a keyframe, even though technically it's not. By this point here, the audio, the volume of the song should be at 0. By this point, it should be at full volume, like 100%. And as we move our keyframe around and place it on different frames, we can make that fade in shorter or longer, basically. So I'm gonna make it pretty long and see what happens. Okay.
You see where this is going?
Too long. I need it to kind of come in as she's saying, you see where this is going, but if it comes all the way in, it's going to be too loud.
You see where this is going?
Five seconds. Let's see if that does it. That's around 5 seconds.
You see where this is going?
Mm-mm.
You see where this is going?
Even a little earlier, but it does not need to be as loud as it is.
You see where this is going?
Okay, so I'm gonna throw on the gain volume filter and I'm gonna bring it down.
You see where this is going?
Not quite that far.
You see where this is going?
One of the things about editing that you do have to bear in mind is it's kind of a process of trial and error. There's no one
You see where this is going?
perfect way to edit any particular piece of video. It's all up to kind of, you have to kind of feel your way through it, which is hard for some of us who are a little bit more like, we want things to kind of be, we like spreadsheets and things like that. And although I'm definitely a creative person, I'm kind of like that. And so it took some time for me to really, get into the, like, okay, you try it this way and then, oh, it's almost there, but it's not quite there. And then you try it this way and, oh, that was too much, and so on and so forth. So, just know that it takes practice. The more you do it, the more, the better you'll be at kind of like quickly doing, quickly editing something that's good or pretty good or even great. But it does take practice and it takes trial and error, both learning initially and also in the moment as you're doing it. Okay, so I could do a lot more with this. One of the other things I'll mention really quick is there's a filter in here that for where is it? Oh, under favorite. There's a filter in here for text where I could, if I put this, oh, it hates me. It hates me now. Okay, there we go. It worked. All right. So if I put that filter in there, I can add, I can add some text. Gosh, it's been a while since I've done this now that I think about it. Okay. That's how you would sort of create some graphics for yourself. You may have to look into that since we're running a little low on time. I want to make sure I show you the uploading bit. So once you've got your, once you've created your finished project, you'll want to click export up here at the top, and you'll want to export your finished version of the program or of the project. There are a lot of different options that you can use for this. One that I tend to suggest is this one here, HEVC. HEVC stands for High Efficiency Video Codec. That's a format of video that takes up not a ton of space, but also looks nice. You don't sacrifice a lot of visual quality because you're not going to be able to get your video in at absolute full quality unless you're willing to sacrifice a lot of space and spend a lot of time watching your video upload. So HEVC is a good balance between not eating up your whole hard drive and also not making your video look bad. So I'm going to click on that to select that as my profile. If you have a graphics card in your computer for 3D games and things like that, you'll want to check this box that says use hardware encoder. Otherwise, you won't need to. And then, but that will make things go a little bit faster. And then you can click export file down here. Excuse me. It'll ask you where you want to save it. You can choose a folder. type a file name down here, and then click save. And then it might ask you, well, I'm running kind of low on hard drive space. So I'll say yes, but over here, it's going to show me the progress as it's encoding my video. I don't actually need it to do that. So I'll right click on it and click stop this job. And I'll just remove that. Once it's done exporting though, you should have a file that you're ready to upload. So I'm going to show you now how to make that happen. So I'll new share. I'm going to switch over to my Firefox here. Okay, so I'm now in my web browser, and I am what I've done to get where I am already here is you'll on YouTube, you'll want to sign into your account, of course, and then up at the top here, you'll have your profile picture. You'll want to click on that, and then click in this menu that pops up, you'll want to click YouTube Studio. That's where I am. And this will show you essentially some key details about your YouTube channel. I'm going to come over and click on, or I'm going to go up here and I can click on create and either do, if I do go live, then it's going to start, it's going to help me start a live stream. But if I click upload videos right here, then it's going to give me this box right here. And I can either click select files, or I can drag and drop from my Windows File Explorer onto this thing. I'm going to click select files just because I know that I can, that'll work pretty well. Okay, and then I'm going to find a video somewhere, smaller video perhaps. I'll click open. And now it's going to start to upload. So it's going to start to upload this video that I helped some colleagues make yesterday. And in the meantime, I could start filling in the information about the video. One thing that I'll want to do in a lot of cases is click upload thumbnail here. And that's actually going to give me the ability to choose an image from my computer that I can use as the main cover art for this video. I'll choose this thumbnail that I made for a video that my supervisor did. But you would want to make your own, obviously, in whatever image editing software you might use. For a title here, I just want to fill in something that's descriptive and hopefully grabs people's attention, but without trying too hard. You know, if you use more than if you use 2 or more exclamation points, it's probably the wrong track. So I'll call this test. And then I can fill in a description to tell people what's going on in the video. Here under playlists, I can choose from one of the playlists associated with my channel. So if I'm doing a series, I'll probably want to have a playlist for that. If I'm starting a new series, I can click new playlist down here and create one. On YouTube, you have to say whether a particular video is made for kids or not. If you say yes, then there are certain things that are disabled and the video is treated in somewhat different ways. If you say no, then it'll kind of be a standard video. And you can restrict it if you feel like there's some content that might not be suitable for younger kids or something like that. Once I click next down here, I can add these little end screens, so little cards that will, graphics that will pop up that will allow you to like subscribe to the channel or suggest other videos that you might be interested in based on this video and stuff like that. So you can set that up for yourself if you want. And you can also add cards to promote certain types of content, but the options that you have there are extremely limited. Here under checks, it says checking to see if your video contains any copyrighted content. So it's going to check that, and it looks like it's going to take a while. And then finally, if I hit next, it gives me visibility options here. Save or publish, so I can either make it a private video. So once I upload it, only I, when I'm logged into my YouTube account, and other people whose YouTube or Google accounts I explicitly approve can watch the video. If I make it unlisted, then I can share the link around as much as I want, and anybody who gets a hold of the link can access the video. But if they just come to my channel, if they just visit my channel, or if they do a search that might normally bring up the video, unlisted videos don't show up there. If I click public, then everyone can see my video. If they go to my channel, if they do a search that's relevant to the content of the video, whatever, then they can find it. And I can also set up what's called an instant premiere, where once I hit publish down here, it will show the video. Essentially, it will play the video as sort of a live broadcast the first time, as though you're watching a video, as though you're watching a show on TV as it airs. And then after that, it'll kind of be a normal, it will just be a normal YouTube video, but you'll sort of watch it live the first time there. And that's kind of cool. Or you can schedule it. And if you schedule it, it will become public at the time and date that you set here. And you can also set a premiere then. So it'll do essentially the same thing, but it'll create a page for the video. People will see, oh, this video, and they can see they can see the title, they can see the description, and they'll see like, oh, this video is going to go live in 12 hours. And then in 12 hours, if they come back, they'll be able to watch the video live with everybody else, again, like a TV show that you're watching as it airs. And then after that, it'll be a normal YouTube video. And if you're doing these premieres, you can like interact with people in the chat and stuff like that. So if I were actually going to publish this, I would click schedule or click publish down here. But I'm actually just going to exit this. It's going to save it as a draft. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to delete it because it's just an example. And that's pretty much it. What questions does everyone have for me before we wrap things up for today? All right, I don't see anything. If you have questions later on, or if you're watching this, a recorded version of this, and you have questions, or if you think of a question tomorrow and you're like, oh man, I should ask that, feel free to shoot me an email. The email address is digital@cals.org, so digital@cals.org. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.